Every day we are facing things that are changing our immediate and long-term future. Climate change is one of those things that is affecting our immediate and our long-term future. It's affecting today, tomorrow, next week, and within the next decades or so. We've blown past the 1.5 degree Celsius of pre-industrialized levels. Governments have completely failed to stop their emissions, and the planet is cooking, for lack of a better term. But we're going to go ahead and break it down. To start this video, we're going to talk about the International Panel of Climate Change's 2023 report, which is a damning diagnosis of the problem. We're going to discuss the Paris Accord Agreement, which was an utter and absolute failure. We're going to discuss the pre-industrialized levels, what it means that we've crossed 1.5 degrees Celsius, with the 2024 being the hottest year on record, which the previous years of the hottest year were 2023, 2022, 2021, and so on and so forth. We're going to discuss the melting ice caps, climate displacement, the United States' failures, and domestic sabotage here in the United States, why nothing can be done about it. We're then going to be discussing what we can do from here and what we can do to stop it as a people. Just like everything else in this channel, whenever I make these videos, the end goal is to hopefully give you a path to seeing how you can work with other people to stop the things that you see happening from happening, including the imminent and not so imminent dangers. For those who are unaware or uninformed on what climate change is, climate change, or global warming as it was called in the early 2000s and still is roughly to this day, is the heating of the world because of industrialization that started in the 1800s and has gotten worse till now. The global temperature has risen, scientists say temporarily, but realistically it's probably not going to be temporarily for very long, of the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit above pre-industrialized temperatures. Global temperature rising, it means erratic behavior, changings of seasons that are inconsistent. For an example, this last year in 2024, we had 3 hurricanes at the same time. We've had winter storms when winter storms were not relevant. We've had right now in the Midwest and Southwest, we have had storms that have been so intense that they're causing massive amount of damage and catastrophic losses of human life. And all of this can be linked to climate change. In the description, I'm going to link a Democracy Now! Video interviewing a NASA climate scientist who is not representing NASA. He's representing his own views because NASA, though they do research on this, do not want to cross any corporate hairs. And so you should watch that video for more information on what exactly is happening, how it's happening. Another key part that I want to just let everyone know about this is, much like tobacco industries, knowing that cancer was caused by tobacco as well as other respiratory effects and bad illnesses. People have always known about the effects of climate change and the emissions that they are pumping into the air. No matter what anyone says, scientists have been saying it since the late 1800s, and they have known that this was going to happen, and it's just been denied for corporate gain and greed. We're going to start with the International Panel of Climate Change 2023 report, which stated that emissions are 12% higher than what they were in 2010 and rising despite clear evidence and warnings from scientists all around the world. The Paris Agreement has been a total failure, stating that they wanted to keep the industrialized temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius, limiting it there, with a goal of 43% of emissions cut by 2030. The top 9 countries that signed the Paris Agreements have not only failed to reduce their emissions, but on average have increased their emissions by 9%, completely off track of what they want. The projected warming is 3.1 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, and by 2050, the global temperatures are expected to be at 2.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrialized levels, which means organized life will cease to end because of that. We are already seeing the consequences of this, as previously mentioned, from extreme weather patterns, but also displacement of millions of people worldwide. Moving forward, we're going to discuss countries that increased emissions from the post-Paris Agreement. The United States is not going to be mentioned in this section because the United States has pulled out of the Paris Agreement twice, and even if we were to mention them, you can kind of understand where it was. China is the world's leading polluter with a 5.2% increase in emissions. That was studied in 2022 to 2023. India creates 8% of global total emissions and pollution, and Russia and Brazil have also had emissions that have risen post-agreement. France as well. The Paris Agreement had voluntary, non-binding NDCs. There was no accountability for any of these countries to actually do any of this stuff. Similar, we're going to discuss the Biden climate bill that had no actual accountability or anything. It just kind of encouraged people, hey, do this because it would be nice. But as we've seen, corporations don't do things to be nice. They do things because they want to make money, and they're going to continue to make money off of the global climate catastrophe. Moving forward, we've already crossed 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrialized temperatures. 2024 was the hottest year on record, 1.55 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. 12 straight months, July 2023 to June 2024, were above 1.5 degrees Celsius. There was the climate event known as El Nino, which raised degrees a little bit, but human emissions are the main source of this. Scientists say it's temporary, but the estimates are about 2027 that this is going to be permanent. And new reports are coming out that 2026, more than likely, 1.5 degrees Celsius of pre-industrialized level will be the norm. This means that, along with the melting ice caps that we're about to discuss, that the Earth is warming at far faster a rate than previously estimated. And the faster it increases, because emissions are increasing, the less time we have to combat these changes, and the less time we have to fix the things that are happening, the less time we have to react to the climate events, the less time we have to react to the lack of land because of rising sea levels. On to melting ice caps, which are way worse than what we thought. Greenland has estimated 20% more ice loss than ever estimated before, with 5,000 square kilometers gone since 1985. Global glaciers have lost 7 trillion tons since 2000. 2023 saw a record of 604 billion tons of ice melt. Sea levels are rising, which are disrupting ocean currents and also displacing people around the world. A lot of indigenous people who live on coast have been displaced. Climate displacement is clearly already happening, with 32 million displacements due to climate disasters in 2022. 7.7 million people remain displaced in 2023. Projections are 44 to 216 million internal migrants by 2050, up to 1.2 billion climate refugees from some estimates, including the World Bank. And I've got to say, those estimates are kind of modest. A lot of the actual estimates that we see when it comes to migrants, because of land displacement, because of things like the international wars that have been estimated to happen because of climate change, see these as there's going to be a lot of migrants, people needing help. We're already seeing migrant crises in the U.S., in Europe, all across the world. People in Pakistan are currently being exported. It's a massive issue that's just going to get worse, and climate change is a main driver behind that. The United States, who as of right now, and continues to, even though some people argue that economically, and as of the Trump administration continues to do things that pull away from this state, still rules the world and is still leader and director in what the world does. The United States has withdrawn from the Paris Agreement twice. Once again, they increased their emissions by a lot since then anyway. They refused to ratify the Kyoto Protocol, which would have helped reduce emissions as well. They cut EPA funding, and they canceled Green Bay grants in 2025, which helped to reduce emissions and encourage renewable energy sources. In Congress, there are 123 climate deniers, people who say that climate change is not real. They're all Republicans. Of the Republicans and a lot of Democrats who do say that climate change is real, a lot of them also say that it's not man-made, that it is something that's naturally happening, which 97%, if not 98 or more, scientists disagree with that by this point. In 2022, the Supreme Court ruled in West Virginia versus the EPA that the EPA can't regulate emissions without Congress, and so the EPA has no real power at all. It can't say how many emissions are going up. It can't fine people. It can't do anything for this because it has no power to do so without congressional approval. And congressional approval has been in corporations' pockets who are fine with emissions. So there's no actual accountability for these people who are actively ruining our environment and destroying the entire world as we know it. The Biden Inflation Reduction Act had $20 billion in voluntary green incentives for corporations. No mandates, just cash rewards. I'm going to quote Noam Chomsky when discussing this. Noam Chomsky said that this is basically, we're going to pay you to be nice. And he had the metaphor of, imagine if the Mexican government, to get the Mexican cartel to stop killing, said, hey, we will pay you $40 million to stop killing. What do you think would happen? That's essentially what the Biden Act did. It said, hey, we'll pay you this money if you reduce your emissions. And so it paid these people this money, and they continued to increase their emissions anyway. The question then goes on, where do we go from here? This isn't coming, it's here. Climate change is here right now. People are being displaced. The climate disasters that are happening because of climate change and because of the man-made emissions that are creating this post-industrial levels of 1.5 degrees Celsius, and they are rising faster than anyone has ever thought before, and are going to get worse. Tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires, etc. are all going to increase in intensity, and more people are going to die, and more people are going to lose their homes because of these acts. Just like with the acts for Palestine, you can protest, you can call your representatives, you can boycott big oil industries. I know people really like to argue about riding your bike and stop driving. That's a good way to boycott, but realistically, unless we get oil, coal, and other companies that are willfully producing emissions into the air and destroying our environment to stop doing that, we have to get them to stop in complete zero by 2030, or more than likely this Earth is completely doomed and organized life on this planet won't last longer than 2050, which who knows if it'll last longer from that anyway, unless something absolutely changes. I just want to say thank you for watching this video. I know a lot of times these things can be a little depressing, but I like talking about them, and I hope you like learning about them and learning about why things like this are dire. I want to issue an apology. I mispronounced Mahmoud Khalil's name when I was discussing it in my last video, but I want to emphasize how important it is to support him through his legal battles. I want to also emphasize that in the first link to this description, as always, will be the United States Campaign for Palestinian Rights. You can go there to support your local organizations. You can organize, you can go to protest, you can donate to different organizations like the United States Campaign for Palestinian Rights, or you can also find on there links to email or call your senators or your representatives. Israel has taken to attacking shelters and schools where they tell people to go and then they just murder people. Out of all of the people who have been murdered in Israel, over 1,000 have been murdered since the ceasefire officially was broke and the genocide resumed, the majority of whom have been women and children. And this is just unacceptable in our world. And I hope that you'll go into the description and find that link and find ways that you can act to hopefully stop genocide in Gaza. And I hope that you'll also work with your local organizations and yourself to help prevent the incoming catastrophe that is climate change. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.